Hell.
We're having some technical problems today. I'm not going to
You
lie.
are. I'm not. I'm good.
I mean,
except for my
countdown was
body,
like 5, 3,
my
1.
spirit, my
There's
soul.
lots of stuff going on.
Live from a November scented hand soap. It's the ESG industry's only weekly woke data podcast. Woo! Is that even true? Nobody knows. Featuring
it's
Analyst Hall,
untestable.
Matt Mascardi. In today's ESG head cold called November 1st, 2023, random ESG awesomeness, director appointments, groupthink, and a word from the great Paul Hodgson from SGH. That sounds like too much. We have too much stuff.
I know it's going to be like a 7-hour show. Strap yourselves in, people, because there's a lot happening and there's nowhere to go.
Our show today is being sponsored by SGage, your ESG
That's right.
data solutions provider.
That's right.
Paul will jump on later to talk about ESG metrics in incentive plans. In fact, Paul has a call out for our listening audience. Do you want to hear more of this stuff? What more do you want Paul to report on? Do you want to hear more ESG metrics and incentive plans? Do you want to have what other? SGage has a ton of data.
Told us they
Yeah.
have a tremendous amount of data about incentive plans, and they want to know if you want to hear more specific things about the incentive plans. Now, frankly, you could just go to SGage and buy the data and see all the data instead of listening to Paul.
You should support our sponsors,
and then it would be worth it. You can also buy the data, buy different data from freeflowanalytics.com, which is the other sponsor of this show.
Do that first.
You think you should do it in the reverse order?
Yeah. Then you should call the SGage CEO and say, why are you listening to Free Float's business plans every week? So much, in fact, that when we missed one sponsor read last week, that we got called out for it. Come on.
What? We got they got nothing else to do?
Tell that CEO to get busy doing other stuff. Come on.
Yeah. Look, I'm a CEO. I know how this works.
All right, come on. You ready for some fun?
All right, let's do some stuff.
That's terrible music. I hate that.
I love it every time.
Here we go. Very nerdy. I got very nerdy stories. That's what I do on Wednesday. Very nerdy stories. First one, a tipping point in equal pay. Automakers are scrapping tiered wages. So one of the victories in the Ford, GM, Stellantis, the labor, they came to an agreement, right? They just have to.
Yeah, they just
still have to pass.
Signed up. Everybody's happy.
Still have to pass the agreement, but I can't imagine they won't pass. So Ford, GM, Stellantis poised to become the latest U.S. corporations to do away with tiered wage arrangements, a system that splits the workforce into haves and have-nots by confining newer employees to lower wages. So since 2001, according to the Washington Post, they're saying around a dozen corporations have started to abolish these tiered wages. Earlier this year, UPS narrowly averted a strike by agreeing to equalize pay. Other companies recently to adopt this: Culligan, Boeing, Harley-Davidson, and Caterpillar, all because of the urging of workers' unions. So this is an issue that I hadn't really thought a lot about, but now that I am thinking about it right now, it's a major win.
This second,
it's a major win. So what you had, Matt, is you had workers at these companies doing the exact same job, making wildly different salaries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was
kills
like
morale, kills everything. Yeah.
Mandatory pay gaps.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right? And if you know that women workers doing the same job as their male, colleagues get paid 80 cents on the dollar, that means you have a tiered system inside a tiered system.
Well, and I'm guessing a lot of your longer tenured employees would be men in the first place because diversity hiring pushes are a new thing.
Exactly. So there's if you think about the way the tiering works, this was accidentally discriminatory. I mean, it was not just against new employees, but the new employees tend to be more gender diverse, women, and more, racial, ethnic diverse.
The other thing that this maybe unintentionally discriminates against, or maybe intentionally, is just the notion of unions themselves. Because when these new workers are coming on with these lower pay structures, and they can never reach the pay that their tenured employees have, a lot of them are probably like, what the F do I care about joining a union anyway? It's not helping me. Like, this is all a bunch of bullshit anyway. Like, the union's for the old dudes. So anyway, there you go. There's a victory. See,
Does this
good
mean
news. See, good news.
are we officially okay? Good news. Are we officially in the age of the union?
That's the sentiment going on. I mean, this is after the union push at UPS and this incredible win at the automakers. It does feel that way. Although
what it feels like is like strategic unionizing.
This was the most strategic unionizing I think I've ever witnessed. The way the way they rolled out different strikes at different times. Yeah.
It was like targeted at specific plants with specific lines of cars, right? Like
it's like a fear campaign.
Basically, you know what I think? I think the union started getting free flow analytics data, and they were reading like proxy statements and annual reports, and they were like, "Hey, this is what they're saying. Let's hit them exactly where it hurts them the most." So that's what I think.
Don't forget, one of the big selling points on getting these victories was talking about the CEO pay ratios. Well, that was one of the best, like, sort of emotional ploys used. All right, moving on. Here's a headline: Women on boards directive expected impact on Belgian listed companies. Okay, I know.
I'm in. Yeah, deep in. Let's do it.
Look, the sidebar here is I'm only picking the story because I want to highlight our data, but who cares? I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So here's what's happening in Belgium.
Sponsor.
Since 2011, Belgium had a quota requiring 1/3 of boards to be women. Okay, 1/3 of boards,
basically, or to be women.
Well, okay, it's the underrepresented sex, but obviously that's going to be women, right?
Oh, yeah. I got you.
If women were in control, it would have applied to men. It would have meant that men have to serve at least 1/3 have to be men.
That's a well-written rule, right? Because you can't say it's discriminatory.
Exactly.
That's a well-written rule.
Where the rule sucked is that a lot of companies in Belgium have a 2-tier system, meaning there's a supervisory board and a management board, and there was no quota that applied to the management board. So there you could do whatever you wanted. Yeah, right? It didn't matter. It could be 10 men, 0 women. So this new quota is aiming to kind of adjust that a little bit. It's doing better with that, which is all good news. But here's what I really want to point out is that, and you have covered this several times in the past, but there is a reality going on that needs to be pointed out repeatedly, which is that despite the fact that in Belgium, 39% of boards are women, there is a considerable female power gap.
Oh, that's bad.
Because 39% of the board represents only 26% of actual influence, according to our data that only you can get here, only here.
Only. That's right.
And this is because the average man in Belgium holds 12% of influence. The average woman holds 7%. And it gets even worse if you drill down further, Matt, because 70% of directors with 10% or more influence are men. And that goes up to all Belgian directors who hold 20% or more influence. 89% of those directors are men. So the most powerful directors at Belgian companies, but far and away, are men, despite the well-intentioned quotas that have increased body count.
Let's pause for like a nanosecond and say, when we say influence, what we mean is these are people who are either well connected to each other, they have been CEOs in the past, or they have like some cachet on their resume. But mostly what it means is they have chair roles, prominent committee roles, they have equity, they're insiders, they were placed there by activists. They are people who have sort of structural power on the board and social power on the board. So we're not like making it up. It's built on social science. And you can see how horrible that kind of is then.
Here's the next story. Another win, maybe. Well, no, this is definitely a win. A sad win. O'Day,
I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. O'Day Asset Management is to close 5 months after allegations of sexual assault and harassment against its founder, Crispin O'Day. So here's the quote from the company. O'Day Asset Management, including Brook Asset Management and O'Day Wealth, will be closing. Fund managers and funds have moved to new asset managers. I mean, this is the first time we've seen the unraveling of a company so quickly after its founder and CEO caught up in a terrible sexual assault and harassment scandal. The crazy thing about this Crispin O'Day jerk is that after the first 13 claims came out, he of course denied all of them. But then after the 20th woman came forward, he then finally broke down and admitted the misconduct. So
that's the magic number. That's what we just need.
I guess so.
If we wanted to pose like white men who have held on to power and are incredibly gropey and heinous, horrible human beings, you just need at least 20 people to step forward. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah.
But
so
will he
goodbye,
keep
Crispin O'Day.
his millions upon millions of dollars?
There's no sense of a clawback. Now, O'Day Asset Management, I believe, is not publicly traded. This is a hedge fund.
No.
These are notoriously private, but still, all the more of a victory that such a private enterprise that has probably gotten away with a lot of bullshit over the years has actually managed to dismantle. I don't know. So credit to the customers, I guess. I'm guessing the customers had a big part of this by pulling out their funds.
It's definitely not credit to the 20 plus women that came forward. I mean, credit to them for coming forward.
Of course,
but
sure.
But like him keeping his millions, not so great.
No. Next story. This is good one for us. CEOs should tell more jokes on earnings calls. Stocks tend to perform better when they do. This is from a paper published in the Review of Accounting Studies. They said when managers use humor on an earnings call, stock market returns are more positive. But Matt, they might just also be in a good mood because the company's doing
they're
well.
They're telling jokes because the company's okay.
But here's the part that got me. Researchers used machine learning tools to analyze a sample of about 12,000 earning calls. They were using machine learning tools to identify humor. I mean, what I would love. Unfortunately, this article. These are people we got to get on the show because I would love to know how they found a joke in these terrible earnings calls.
Well, they probably just looked in the transcript for the word giggle or like or whatever.
The crowd erupts with uproarious laughter.
Like somebody had to transcribe the laughter. But this is a step closer to your lifelong dream.
Which is that? Which one is that?
Everyone in a company
Free pizza?
as mandatory for performance reviews has to do a 5-minute stand-up comedy
10
act.
10 minute, yeah. Actually,
it
started at 20 minutes. It started at 20 and I reduced it to 10.
20 is a really long time.
Yeah,
I would like to add to it. I'd rather it be 5 minute of comedy and then 5 minute of open mic night.
Of quiet reflection.
Yeah. No, I want them to get an
Play
acoustic
a guitar. No
and
guitars.
And sing about the falling leaves.
Absolutely not. Morgan's. I don't know if you covered the story in my absence. Morgan Stanley's decision to award $20 million special bonuses to the runners-up of its CEO succession party.
This is crazy.
Yeah, points to a governance risk, of course. So last week, Morgan Stanley announced that the new CEO would be Ted Pick. And that it's the two losers. I mean, look, I mean, that's kind of,
that's what that's correct. They lost.
Andy Saperstein and Dan Sinkovitz, they will stay on, but they are getting a $20 million bonus, which is roughly the equivalent of what they were already earning annually. But here's the kicker too: is that what nobody, of course, reports properly is that the retiring CEO James Gorman is staying on as executive chair. So he's not only is he staying on as a chair, but he's maintaining an executive presence, right? So
what's the point?
So this is a shit show in the making. No, I mean you're throwing $20 million a piece because clearly one or two of them threatened to leave. I'm guessing to bounce, right? So you're throwing up some kind of a retention award to keep them around. Also to keep their morale up. Yeah,
get the same amount as the other two? All three got the exact same number, I believe, is what happened,
it remains to be seen what's going to happen eventually to Ted Pick's compensation going forward, but they all got the same bonus to keep doing their jobs, to keep making. So
you have Gorman, who owns a ton of shares, has made millions upon millions of dollars, moving to the executive chair role where he still basically sits there. He was all three of their bosses. He was the CEO's boss. He's still going to be there. He handpicked the board and he picks his successor, but it's really a successor in name only because the other three keep doing their job, also got the same amount of money, and their old boss is still there every day as an executive chair.
We'd have to do an analysis. I like an analysis of that announcement internally when James Gorman picked Ted Pick, because do you think there was a I picked Pick joke? Like, do you think there was a little bit of humor? We got to get the review of accounting studies to help us with that analysis.
We definitely need machine learning to figure out whether anyone laughed.
But I think that's the only reason why he went with Ted Pick, is just for that joke. Because really he's not going anywhere. And there's basically three co-CEOs now. So,
I mean, he couldn't go with Simkowitz and Saperstein. That sounds like a law firm anyway,
terrible,
right? Like, you had to go with Ted Pick. Yeah.
How about this? I don't know if this is boring or not, but this is the day we do boring stories. Support for S&P 500 say-on-pay plans increases for the first time in 5 years, according to Diligent. We got to work more with Diligent. They do a lot of pay stuff. We got to get someone on the show to do something. Or will Paul be mad if we do that? I don't know.
No, well, Paul's got all the data. We can get Paul to come on live and we'll drill him.
According to Diligent, support for Say on Pay rose to 89%, up from 88%. So it's not much of a big deal here.
What?
But they're saying that the reason for this, they are claiming, although there's no actual proof of this, is that CEO average realized pay declined by 68% to $26 million last year compared to $80 million in 2021. But
okay,
yeah, go ahead.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
First of all, those numbers are hugely misleading.
Completely, of course. And you know what?
Because
anytime you report on the annual pay of any executive at the companies we talk about, it is misleading. Because really, and Rick Marshall, who still the chair of our board, Rick Marshall put a lot of great effort actually into showing the career earnings of these executives. Because again, cherry picking 1 year of pay does not tell even remotely the story of how much actual money these guys are really getting.
And it's not even like these years in particular are incredibly misleading, because in 2020 they all took $1, right? And said they were giving it up because of COVID and they were magnanimous.
$1 on
Meanwhile,
their salary,
on their salary. Meanwhile, taking stock options while the market was at an all-time low.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the best stock
COVID.
options ever, since 2008, the best ever, right?
And then the first year, like when a lot of those options vest and like they start actually getting some of the money, they have this massive bump. So it looks like they get a bump. And then the next year, I mean, a lot of the CEO trick right now is to give themselves effectively a giant pay package with a tier. And when they meet the threshold 3 years from now, they get like $500 million. Like, forget getting $20 million a year.
Look, there is a very sad reality in these economies that when the general economy tanks, the executives who keep their jobs are going to make a shit ton of money based just on equity awards alone,
just on the equity awards. And that's when they pile. You notice, like if you read all the filings, they don't pile in when markets are at all-time highs, right? They pile into the stock options when their stock is low and before they announce a buyback. And like anytime you're going to get a stock bump, you pile in the option. That's when you do it.
Yeah, I wonder how thick the COVID masks were for CEOs during COVID, because they knew that if they could just survive COVID, they were going to be really extra fun rich, right? They were probably a lot thicker than your average person's masks. That's my guess.
I wonder how many of the CEOs said something like that on an earnings call, got a round of laughter, and then saw the stock go up, and they were happy with their options.
Next, there was a shareholder vote at Bio-Techne Corporation. Am I saying that right? Bio-Techne? I should know this. This is one of the 500 biggest companies in the U.S. I should know the name of this. I'm picking this story because this is a bit of a preview. We're launching a new show soon, kind of like the what are we calling this? The proxy show?
That's right. We are. We're laughing. We're launching a new show. Yeah.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over specifically every show. We're going over votes, meeting votes, and then we're going to be previewing upcoming meetings, previewing those votes. So we're going to be helping you decide how to vote, and then kind of laughing at how people just voted. Right? That's what we're going to do.
So yeah, think of it like Sports Center, but for annual general meetings and proxies, and we'll give you the highlight reel. And then we'll give you our picks for upcoming, games and proxies and all sorts of stuff.
It's EISSPN. I like that one. All right, here we go. Bio-Techne. They had a vote a couple days ago. Here, the headline, the big takeaway here. Only 35% of shareholders support Say on Pay. That's
wow.
Extreme defeat Say on Pay at Bio-Techne. And they've been struggling in this area the last 2 years. Only 62% supported in 2022, only 55% in 2021. Usually you can trace this vote to a very sad stock price, which is happening at Bio-Techne. It's currently $53, down from a high of $89 in July. But here's the big kicker. CEO Charles Cometh.
Oh, tough name.
He announced his retirement last year, and according to the proxy statement, the compensation committee discussed what to do about this. This is true, Matt. I have a quote here. They discussed how are we going to encourage Mr. Cometh to remain motivated through the next 2 years. I mean, really, I mean, you were telling me a story about something that happened at a middle school in your town before we started.
Yeah.
I mean, is this not like dealing with children? I mean, how are we going to keep him motivated?
First of all,
he's already making $16 million a year. Is that not motivation enough?
Apparently not. When did he announce this? That he was retiring?
He's retiring in 2024. He announced this in 2022 in June. And let me tell you, Matt, here's what they did to keep him motivated. Okay, first of all, this is just a bizarre story. Okay, so I guess first of all, the $16 million was not enough. So what they did is they announced that they're going to give him a big boatload of options to keep him focused, right? And in the 2022 proxy, they announced to keep him motivated, they're going to give him 200,000 options, which is a lot of options to stay.
That's a lot.
Fixated. But according to the next year's proxy, and they don't correct this, I don't know if it was a typo or if they intentionally put this wrong, but it's not actually 200,000 options, Matt. It's 1,200,000 options. 1.2 million options. So they I don't know if it was like intentionally misleading or not, but really what he got was 1.2 million options to keep his eyelids open. So instead of the toothpicks they could have just put in there to keep them propped like an Tom and Jerry cartoon.
They went with 1.2
They went with
million.
1.2 million. And this is probably why shareholders are pissed, among other reasons. Yeah.
But look, I think there's a lesson that we can take away here, and maybe we can impart to anybody who's in an executive position. If you announce that you're going to retire 2, 3, 4 years from now, everyone will get incredibly worried that you won't do the job that you've been doing and paid for. So just announce your retirement now, and just tell your go into the office right now, bang out the email that says, "Hey, I want to let you know I'm planning on retiring from my position in 2027.
And I'm getting very sleepy.
I'm getting a little bit sleepy, and we're out of toothpicks. I just renewed my
Netflix subscription,
and we're out of toothpicks.
Yeah.
So I need 6 to 7 million in options in order to keep doing my job."
Okay, so here's the second big takeaway. So only 35% of shareholders supported Say on Pay. In fact, they've been pissed at Say on Pay for years. So let's
How many shares does Cometh own? It's probably just Tim.
Let's look at the next logical question here is how did the shareholders vote against the compensation committee, right? These are the directors responsible for being idiots.
They chose it.
So first of all, there were the story gets a little deeper here. There were 3 compensation committee members responsible for this nightmare. That was Joseph Keegan, Randolph Steer, and Rupert Vesey. Keegan and Vesey got 95% of the vote.
What?
Yeah. The former pay chair who's been on the board since 1990 and has almost as much influence on the board as the CEO, according to our data. He got 82% yes vote. So, look, credit goes to some shareholders for realizing that something smelled bad, and that was Randolph Steer, right? But here's the crazy part, Matt, is that what they did. I don't think I've ever seen this. This is like, we talk ad nauseum about all the companies that either they screw something up, they apologize, and then they replace the CEO with a woman, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But this is the first time I've seen it happen on a compensation committee. So what they did is they made Randolph Steer step down from his role as compensation committee chair. He's still on the committee, of course. I mean,
yeah, well, you can't take him off the committee.
And he was replaced by a woman, Julie Bushman. Right? So she was appointed chair. And here's the crazy thing. Julie Bushman, the new compensation committee chair, has a 37-year career at 3M, right? She retired as executive vice president. CEO Charles Cometh had a 24-year career at 3M. So that's who they replaced her with. Yeah, this is why networking
That's called impartial.
Is so important, right? I mean, this is why women have so little influence, because they just don't have enough friends, I guess. But yeah, that's what's going on there at Bio-Techne.
I can't get over the names. They all sound like they walked out of the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. Like Randolph C. Steer. It sounds like a comic villain in some way.
And if you like that level of pithy analysis, please, I want you to stay tuned to the show that we will be announcing soon, the Proxy Show, where we'll be doing stories just like this every week.
Honestly, if you got a name suggestion, we're all ears. We gotta name the show. But
how about Better Than Glass Lewis? Is that it? Can we call it that?
I think that's available actually as an podcast name. I do want to point out that Randolph Steer still got more votes by more than double than the actual pay, right? Like he got 82% of investor votes.
Believe me, I don't understand what investors are up to.
82%. What do you have to do to get like voted out? Knowing all of these are advisory votes. I know we're afraid to piss anybody off, but they're still all like Steer could stay on the board and choose to ignore it, right? Like it's basically an advisory vote.
Shareholders that your company's share price was at $130 at the end of 2021. It's currently at $53, right? It continues to fall at a very steady and gradual rate. This guy's been on the board since 1990. You're pissed off at his main function, and you still you can't vote him out. You still need him around.
You still can't. You just can't pull that lever.
Randolph Steer.
What happens?
Because you don't want to offend him, right? You don't want to offend him.
If I get rid of Randolph Steer, how will anybody be able to pay this guy? This is really
all right.
amazing.
Let me wrap up my segment. This show is going to be 16 hours long. Finally, a quiz here for you, Matt. A little quick quiz. Okay?
I love a quick quiz.
And here's the headline: Delta's chief sustainability officer is on a mission to use less fuel. Quick quiz: Is Delta's chief sustainability officer a man or a woman?
Oh. Wow.
Surprised it's taking you this long to make this guess.
Well, look, there's an obvious answer.
Oh, you think I'm trying to trick you,
right? Yeah. Like there's because it's Delta, you have to say okay. Like this is a highly interconnected company. This is.
I'll give you a hint. Don't go too deep.
I'm gonna go with woman.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because has there ever been a chief sustainability officer who's a man? Has there ever been a head of human resources that's a man?
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah. And
there are chief sustainability officers, but they are men. They tend to be men of color.
Okay,
and they tend to be in places like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, absolutely right. That was going to be my next point. But you know what? Chief sustainability officer and chief human resources officer have in common, Matt? They are both not in the pipeline to take over as CEO at publicly traded corporations.
So
there you go. Yeah, congratulations.
There it is. Which brings us to...
Finally. I've been waiting all show for you, Matt.
I mean, yeah, I haven't participated very much so far. All right, I got two things. One's quick and one's a bit longer. First, I want to do some quick. This is another tease of the show coming up.
This is a
show. Quick director appointment roundup. Okay.
EISSPN.
Oh God, your acronyms are amazing. Please, someone help Damien name the show. This week, in the past 7 days, we saw some new directors get added. And when I say added, I mean appointed, because they don't get voted in and then added. They get appointed and then you vote on them whenever the AGM is. So these are directors who have been appointed by the boards to the boards, and you'll get to vote on them later. First up is Root Inc. appointed Donna Dorsey. She's a black woman. She's diverse human capital experience. They touted this all over the place.
Right.
And the reason why I'm mentioning her is because it doesn't matter. Adam Tim, the founder and CEO, has 80% of the influence on the board and dual class shares, so no one cares. So
cheating. Don't cheat, Adam.
This is Adam Tim being like, I'm going to pick you from my board, and then you are going to do what I say. So good for Adam for getting that one.
At this point, Matt, I'm almost okay if you're going to be founder and CEO and control the company. I'm almost okay if you're at least doing it with a 1 share, 1 vote, do
it that
process.
way. Yeah,
if you actually just own a majority of the shares, I guess fine, you win. But come on,
but it's cheating shares.
Don't cheat.
It's cheat shares. Which brings us to SEI Investments, who appointed Stephanie Miller to the board. She has a 25-year track record in asset management, including liquidity, administration, multi-asset classes. And it doesn't matter because Alfred West Jr. is the executive chair and founder. He has 83% of the influence on the board and no one cares. It's another, it doesn't matter, founder picked board. So congratulations to Stephanie for getting to greenlight everything Alfred says. Next up, we got Altus Power. Altus Power
I feel a trend. I smell a trend. Even though I've been stuffed up, I've been head cold since last Tuesday, I smell a trend.
I think you're onto something because Tina Chan Reich just joined their board at Altus. She's adding, she's actually being added directly to the nominating and audit committees. How often you don't see very often a new board member immediately joining committees. They usually onboard them for a little while and then slowly bring them on. But Tina comes from Amex. She's got 25-year track record on risk management.
Ooh, that sounds important.
Except that Lars Norrell and Greg Felton, the co-founders, own collectively 78% of the influence. So no one cares. The co-founders
why do you
own
need
it all,
risk management
no one
when
cares.
it's just a couple of dudes making decisions?
2 dudes deciding what happens. Which brings us to our good news of the week. There are companies that aren't basically controlled by their founders who do add board members, like this company, Entain PLC. They're a UK-based entertainment gambling company. So if you're not into the gambling thing, then too bad. But they appointed Amanda Brown to the board, and they added her immediately to the compensation committee. That's not the audit committee, right? That's not the one where no one wants to listen to you because you're saying that decimal place is off. This is the one where it's like the CEO gets paid by you.
Yeah.
That's a powerful position. That's got some real heft to it.
And as we know, 100% of compensation committees give the CEOs what they want. So that's a good way to make friendship with the CEO.
It's good for it's friends. Yeah, that's what you're joining the board for. More friends. But here's why this one matters, because Entain is a socialist board according to Free Flow Analytics. Socialist boards are where all the committees and the directors have roughly equal influence.
You know what that sounds like? It sounds like a board from either Europe or the UK. That's my guess.
It is a UK company. That is correct.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's one of the few companies with actually a massive positive female power gap.
What?
Plus 18% female power gap.
Cool.
And they just added another woman to the board and put her on the comp committee. She is currently, according to our data, unconnected to the other board members in any obvious way. We'll know more later. But honestly, love this. I love this. This is great. This is what I call a good appointment, a solid appointment. Which brings me to the next segment, which is less solid, because you sent me this story. A new study from On Deck looked at which firms' ex-employees become CEOs more often. They used LinkedIn data for Fortune 500 companies, and they have no time frame on this, but I assume these are current CEOs, and they looked at all the CEOs on LinkedIn and checked their prior experience, and they wanted to see which firms they had in common. So here is your download. Ready? Mm-hmm. First of all, McKinsey is the number one prior experience firm. 7% of current CEOs on the Fortune 500 had worked at McKinsey at some point. 7.1%. That's a lot.
Wow. It is a lot.
Bain was 6.7%.
Wait,
BCG at 6, and Kearney,
the vulture circling Bain, yeah.
And, well, I mean, I'm not sure that BCG, Kearney, and Oliver Wyman, which round out the top 5, notice that all of them are consulting firms. Every single one of the top 5.
All private?
All private, all consulting. Bain might be publicly traded, but I'm pretty sure that like all of them are management consulting firms. And then we get into more fun firms, including... And if you ever wonder why we talk about this all the time on this show, the NFL, the National Football League, the American Football League supplied 4.8% of current CEOs.
Well, I don't know what that means. What do you mean?
It means 4.8% of current Fortune 500 CEOs had prior work experience inside the NFL.
Stop.
That is correct. Nope, that's what they found.
I mean, that's incredible. Well, good. Now I'm all the more happy to crap on the NFL. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Rounding out the top here.
And I'm guessing from all the stories that we've covered on the NFL, those were not people of color. Those were white dudes.
No. Come on.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
What kind of show are you running?
The NFL, notoriously, like over 70% of the NFL players are black, but basically none of the owners and none of the head coaches.
No.
Just saying. Just saying.
I mean, the rounding out the top here are Lazard, EMI, Goldman, P&G. In fact, 51.3% of current, Procter & Gamble, 51.3% of current Fortune 500 CEOs come from these 10 firms.
Wow. That's important. It's important information to know. I'm glad they did this study. Yeah. For once, I'm glad about something.
Here's why I thought it was important, because if we're talking about 10 firms supplying 50% of Fortune 500 CEOs, that sounds like a massive amount of groupthink. Like, like the cultures of 10 firms are controlling
off the charts,
of the CEOs at the Fortune 500. So I want to add to your desperate fear of groupthink using free flow analytics data. This is data supplied to us by free flow analytics.
Do you need any more of a reason to buy our data? I mean, we've had so many wonderful
you don't need more of a reason.
Sprinklings of delicious free flow data in this show today.
So here's what I looked at. I looked at the 450 largest U.S. companies, basically mirroring roughly the Fortune 500. And at 62% of them, or 282 companies, I found directors on the board who at least 2 of them went to the same exact school. Okay. We have data on undergrad, grad, PhD, like all the schools that they went to. There are 3,100 directors at these 282 companies. And here are the most incestuous school director combinations at those companies. 282 companies. This is the schools most represented, where they have multiple directors on the board that went to those schools.
And I'm sure none of this will be a surprise, but go ahead.
Yeah. You want to guess the first one?
Harvard.
Yes, it is Harvard
Stanford
Business.
or Stanford, but Harvard.
Harvard Business School.
Right, of course.
Specifically
MBA.
HBS.
MBA,
Everyone getting a Harvard Business School degree.
Sure.
132 directors. 4.2% of the 3,100 directors went to Harvard Business School, and they're on boards together, right? Like these are boards with multiple of going to the same school. Yep. Stanford, 66 directors. They're next. Penn, 66 directors. Harvard again, but this is undergrad. Harvard undergrad.
So that's roughly 6% represent just Harvard in general, right?
Exactly. And then Cal at 48 and Wharton, which is also Penn. So 100 directors are Wharton and Harvard is what we're really looking at.
What's wrong with you, Princeton? What's going on over there at Princeton? What are you failing?
Yeah, Princeton,
Yale. What's wrong with you,
not,
Yale? How
Not
dare
even
you.
not even in the running. And
What about
honestly,
the University of Southern Maine? Where are they on the list?
They ranked. Yeah, they're somewhere. I think. I'm really sad for Brown, which is my alma mater. I thought I was getting a
Something
good
to be sad about,
education.
yeah.
I went to the Ivy League that no one likes and no one cares about. Apparently.
Well, let's be real. The Ivy League is Harvard. Let's be fair.
Apparently, but here is. I went after going through all this data. I wanted to pick your groupthink company of the week. Are you ready?
I don't know what that means, but I'm so excited. Yeah.
Your groupthink company of the week is IBM.
Oh.
Here's why.
Yeah.
International Business Machines. Martha Pollack, Fred Wardell, and Fred McNabb, all directors at IBM.
Two Freds and Martha.
They all went to Dartmouth.
Okay, I'm liking this. Yeah.
In fact,
Ivy League.
McNabb and Pollack both went to Dartmouth and got their undergrad degrees there, and they're 2 years apart in age, which means they went there at the same exact time. They were actually
same parties,
same parties. They go to the same reunion years.
Yep, of course.
Pollack, McNabb, and Gorski all went to Wharton too. So now we've got two sets of directors that went to the same schools.
So Pollack and McNabb, they started at Dartmouth, and then they also went to Wharton.
And then they also went to Wharton.
Are they like married? Are they conjoined twins? What's the deal there?
Not according to the data, but the data does say that fully 75% of the board is also connected through other boards, meaning not only did they all go to the same schools, 75% of them actually have friends in common on other boards that they've sat on.
Wow.
And that doesn't include Martha Pollack, who hasn't been on other boards, and we can't connect to anybody. So now we are able to say more than 75% of the board is basically fully connected.
Wow.
In fact, the chair of the governance committee, Andy Liveris, who is all over the place, he knows 31% of the current board. 94% of the board have been CEOs before. 91% of the board influence is held by directors connected to each other. And they all perform, according to Free Flow Analytics performance metrics, totally average.
Well,
they are 50% rotation players.
Better than below average. Better than below average.
But basically what you're getting is pure average from a group of people who all know each other.
What you're basically getting is a big lump of Play-Doh, and no one has decided to like separate the Play-Doh and make different toys, right?
Yeah.
It's just one lump of Play-Doh.
I love.
Is that what you're trying to say?
I love an analogy that compares a board to Play-Doh. I think that doesn't happen nearly enough. IBM does claim that its board is 25% diverse and 15% gender diverse, which is pitiful to begin with.
15%?
15% gender diverse.
In 2023? Are you reading a proxy from 1992?
No, this is today. But we could argue that they are actually 0% diverse. Everyone on that board basically went to the same school, knows each other's friends, hangs out on boards. If they don't go to the Met Gala together, they're at the reunions together. That's pretty much the way this works.
Not to belabor a 17-hour segment, but what sticks out to me is that I wonder if there are other 15% in the S&P 500 is absurdly low, right? I mean, you don't even see that anymore. Really I wonder if other boards of this nature with such ridiculously low amount of women on the boards also suffer from some of the same groupthink nonsense, right? Because I mean, that again, 15%. I mean, it's like 1987 talking.
I may have stuck. Well, I mean, IBM is basically stuck in 1987 in some ways.
IBM, exactly. Yeah.
So but I do want to congratulate them. This is a victory that's hard to achieve. It's really hard in 2023 to stack the board this completely with people who all went to the same schools, who all work on the same boards, and there is basically no diversity. That's
congratulations,
hard.
IBM.
I mean, you have to work at that. All right, before we get out of here, Paul has been waiting outside. I actually left him out.
It's cold.
It's cold here.
Let him inside. I know. He can stand behind you.
No, I'm not. I don't like people hovering over me.
Weird.
So I made him wait outside. And
Paul's a heavy
here's Paul.
breather, too.
Here's Paul talking about some deep ESG metrics. Paul, come in.
Hello, Paul Hodgson here with S-Gage Statistic of the Week. I just got in my inbox an email from Agenda Week, a publication of the Financial Times, indicating that some boards may be re-examining their use of ESG metrics in incentive plans in the face of criticism from certain investors who say companies are using the qualitative goals to paper over issues with financial performance. Now, I can't comment on that, but it wouldn't be the first time that companies use soft targets to excuse poor performance against hard targets. But what I can do is tell you how many of the S&P 500 and the Russell 3000 actually uses ESG metrics in their incentive plans. So what we're looking at for the whole Russell 3000 are 1,665 standalone ESG metrics for all executives, 2,627 ESG metrics included in business strategy scorecards, and 1,988 ESG metrics included in individual performance assessments for executives. So that's quite a lot of people covered by ESG metrics. Now, some of those executives might have 2 or 3 ESG metrics assigned to them, either in individual performance metrics or as a standalone metric. But just looking at the kind of overall statistics for the use of ESG performance metrics, in the Russell 3000, there is something like 55%, so just over half of companies have no ESG metrics in their incentive plan. So it's not as widespread in the Russell 3000 as it is in the S&P 500, where less than a quarter have no ESG metrics in their incentive plan. So that's 24.3%. So more than 3/4 of companies in the S&P 500 have adopted ESG metrics in their incentive plans. The majority of those are using them in individual performance assessments. So, for example, if an executive has a whole list of performance targets assigned to them individually, there will be an ESG metric or one or more ESG metrics within that individual performance assessment. The next most common, 35.2%, are being used in a strategic scorecard, so a business strategy scorecard. So again, these could be for individual executives or they could be for the executive team as a whole. There's a whole list of financial targets and other types of targets in there as well that could be ESG related or could be strategically significant for the company. And then the smallest percentage rather, at 31.4%, is for individual standalone metrics. So for example, for the whole executive team, you might have a return on capital metric, a profitability metric, and then for the whole executive team, a single standalone ESG metric, one or more single standalone ESG metrics, which could have something to do with GHG, emission reduction targets. It could have something to do with the diversity, equity, and inclusion target. So the most common ESG metrics are carbon footprint and emission reductions, diversity and inclusion, employee health and safety, customer satisfaction, and cybersecurity. The other thing that can be seen over time, just looking at the S&P 500, is that there has been a fairly significant growth over the years that we've been looking at it at S-Gage since 2021. Fairly significant growth in the use of such metrics. So just to look at the kind of negative aspect of it, so it's gone down from just over a third in 2021 with no ESG metrics now to just under a quarter. Most of the growth in that has been in the use of ESG metrics in strategic scorecards, so business strategy scorecards, and in standalone metrics. As part of individual performance assessment, the numbers have dropped slightly there in that particular usage, but overall grown over time. So this is Paul Hodgson with the S-Gage Statistic of the Week, signing off.
Paul, I have a request for you. That's a lot of statistics about how much ESG metrics are in pay, but nothing about how much pay they get for the ESG metrics. Because the answer to that question is almost none. Isn't it like a pointless number? Paul, answer my question. Paul, help me. That's Paul Hodgson from S-Gage. He's really pissed because I left him outside for so long, so he left immediately. I am your analyst, Matt Mascardi. That was Damian Rallis. We are Free Float. Go get S-Gage data, but only after you get Free Float Analytics data. And look out for our new show. We're actually going to record our first episode next week. We're going to drop it soon thereafter. We don't know what it's going to be called. You got a name suggestion, hit us on LinkedIn, hit us on social, send us a direct email. The Proxy Show is horrible.
So creative.
It's probably going to end up being that. It's horrible. It's like my brother named his stuffed elephant when he was a kid Elephanty. That's basically what you just did. Proxy pants. That's it. We'll be back on Friday to wrap the week. Until then, goodbye.